Dispatchers help callers on the worst days of their lives. For over 25 years, we've been there. A silent partner in millions of calls thanks to our redundant and diverse networks that ensure call delivery. Today, cities are bigger, traffic more congested, and the challenge is more complex. But you're never alone, because InDigital is quietly improving, implementing, and driving the next generation of 911, so you're supported in every situation. Make the switch at indigital.net.
Have you ever met a 911 professional and asked, what's the worst call you've ever taken? Well, here's your answer. I heard your last breath the night you flipped your four-wheeler. I tried to call you the day you committed suicide by driving your car into a tree. Blue face, cold to the touch. I helped you with CPR after you found your infant face down, not breathing. It messed me up. I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough. You were with me from the beginning, Grandma. 27 years later, I took the 911 call when you died. How fitting to be there for me in the beginning, and I was there for you in the end. I miss you, Grandma. I am 911. This is but a glimpse into the world of emergency dispatch. But what is it really like to answer a call during someone's nightmare? What is the impact on the first responder answering the call? Available on Amazon or where you purchase your favorite books and ebooks. Imagine listening. Your worst day is our everyday.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
This lady woke up one morning. It was probably 6 o'clock in the morning, and her daughter, 14 years old, was dead. I mean, she was gone. I mean, she had overdosed, and just hearing her describe, you could literally hear her across the room hollering through my partner's headset, and that just kind of stuck with me all day that day. It just kind of stuck with me that this lady woke up to her 14-year-old daughter gone, and those screams and cries really, as a parent, that really bothered me, and not really bothered, but just kind of broke my heart, I guess I should say.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, a leader in next-gen core services, and a big shout-out, as always, to subscribers of the podcast, whether you are on Patreon, Circle, or Facebook. Thank you for everything, because I wouldn't be able to do everything that I do if it wasn't for all of you, but especially all of you who continue to watch, listen, share, all of it. I appreciate you more than you know. It is January 24th, 2025. So many crazy things have been happening. We've got a new president. We've got all kinds of, I think the drones are back in New Jersey. I don't know. There's a lot of crazy shit going on, but I'm also fresh back from North Carolina. I was out there and recorded all kinds of episodes. I think I recorded about 3 months worth of content out there in just a week's time. My voice is better now than it was. I also got sick on driving back from North Carolina. And wow, it was something, but it was amazing to be out there with all of those 911 professionals, hearing their stories, teaching with them, and shout out to both agencies out there, New Hanover County 911, as well as Henderson County Sheriff's Department, for bringing me out there, but also my partnership with the North Carolina State 911 Board. Thank you, Pokey, and your team, all of you, for bringing me in and just the opportunity to be there. It was an honor, and I appreciate it very much. Good times, a lot of good stuff already coming up for 2025, and much more to come that I will tell you all about as soon as I can. But I am super excited for my guest today. His name is Steven. He is a senior telecommunicator with Danville Fire Department Emergency Communications. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, bud?
Not much. I'm definitely feeling better. We were talking earlier, and just as I was mentioning in the intro, I was sick as a dog earlier this week, and we were going to be recording earlier this week.
Yeah.
That would not have been fun. But thank you so much for your patience and being flexible and such, and I'm glad to have you here.
I'm glad to be here.
This is going to be fun. It's going to be good. You are doing a lot of things, and every so often on social media, I see you dressed up, looking all very dapper with two big gentlemen next to you, and it looks like you're doing just like some pro wrestling stuff. Is that right?
Yes, that was back in the day. I've kind of freed that up, but yes, I was doing pro wrestling as a manager on the weekends, just having a ball, man. Big Money Stevie Stevens and Big Money Incorporated.
Oh, I love it, dude. Man, that is pretty badass. I love all of that. And maybe we'll get into a little bit of that here in a while. But I want to go back in time because I want to learn more about you. I mean, I've seen a lot of stuff that you're doing on social media, some of the classes that you've been teaching and everything. But just from what we were talking about a little bit before we started recording, I mean, you've got about 40 years total in public safety, 4 in dispatch. But how did you get involved in public safety to begin with?
Well, it's kind of funny. I was born the son of a preacher man. No, I'm not going to go back that far. No.
In the
when I was
beginning,
a kid,
there was darkness.
yes, in the beginning there was darkness. No, when I was a kid, there were so many things. There was a couple of things that stand out that I always loved, and my parents always talked about it. One was music, any kind of musical instruments, anything like that. And the second was fire trucks. I absolutely loved fire trucks. I remember I was about 6, 7 years old. We would go to the local fire department for a fish fry or a stew or just a gospel singing. And it's kind of weird. I can still smell the fire department. I can still smell the burntness of the turnout gear and seeing the trucks. And I just kind of fell in love with that. And when I got a little bit older and in high school, our fire department had a junior firefighter deal. So I joined up when I was 16, started just getting my certifications and went from there. It's just been a whirlwind of good times.
Okay, hold up. You were 16 when you were starting to do all of this, and
Volunteer, yes.
So the reason I say it like that as well is because I'm thinking about where I was and what I was doing when I was 16, and I was just like driving around with my girlfriend and friends and stuff, not even like thinking about, I guess the lack of a better way to put it, like real life shit. And you at 16 are doing all of this stuff there at the fire department. What was that like for you? I mean, just trying to think of how to wrap my mind around it as a 16-year-old, right? As a teenager, and things that go on then, and maybe temptations from friends or whatever, and you're like, bro, no, I have to go do some stuff at the fire department. Like, what was that like?
Yeah. It was exciting. I had a friend of mine who joined up the same time I did at 16, and we both kind of went through it together. It was a great program. We learned a lot from the get-go, and it kept you out of trouble for the most part. Like you said, most people out cruising around doing whatever. I got to stay straight sober or whatever if I need to run the next fire call or do this. It was 24/7. You're a volunteer fire department. You keep that pager on your side waiting for it to beep, and you jump and flinch. You're taking off, and it was just fun. And I've always kind of had a heart for helping people too. So I enjoyed it. I really did. And at 16, it's a young age, but you learn a lot. Your mind is still growing and stuff. So you just take all that in and absorb it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. There's a lot that comes with it. Now I can only imagine, and maybe you didn't do this, but when you were sitting in class and you've got the pager going off, like, are you running, or was that the time where they're like, look, you can't do this while you're at school, but as soon as school lets out, the bell rings and it goes off. We're on gone. Over.
Yeah. I think one time we did have a wreck in front of the school and a couple of us ran out there to help with that, but they let us do that. But other than that, no, we couldn't have our pagers in school.
Was there Were there a lot of questions from other friends, like classmates and such? Like, what is it really like? Or what is it that you're doing? And you're just kind of, uh,
No, they just kind of laughed at us because it was kind of like Starsky and Hutch in a way. I had my Mustang, I had a Ford Mustang, had
yeah.
my little red light in the dashboard, spinning around, going places. It was crazy. But
Hmm.
our friends really they didn't ask too many questions. They may ask if there was a bad wreck or something. They would ask about those sort of things. But for the most part, they just let us do our thing. They knew what we were doing. So.
So at 16, what is some of the training that, I mean, they even have you doing and such?
Well, it's very minimal training because
Hmm.
we couldn't go into a burning building until we were 18. We couldn't whole lot of things, but we could still get the training in. During that time, we had what was called a first responder medical certification. It was just below an EMT.
Hmm.
So we got that. We were able to take blood pressures and stuff on a medical scene and do those things. A lot of times it was just directing traffic at wrecks and directing traffic at filling water bottles, or not water bottles, but changing out air bottles at fire scenes, just doing simple stuff, just learning the ropes. Stand next to the guy running the pump and learn how to run the pump. So for a couple of years, it was just all training and learning, just getting next to somebody and following their lead.
Was any of it ever like just overwhelming? Like some of the stuff that you're seeing, like, holy crap, like I'm actually doing this right now.
It was kind of overwhelming, but it was fun at the same time. I guess being young and starting off doing it, it's like my son
Yeah.
with wrestling. He was 14 when he started doing it, so it just kind of started coming natural to him as he got older. And the same with me as I got older, things just started coming natural to that kind of thing. So you know, you saw some bad things and you saw some good things, and you just kind of had to learn to deal with it. And I had a lot of people walk me through those processes of how to deal with the bad times, and that was a great asset to me.
Well, that's always good to have that, the support system, especially during the time, because, for a lot of other people, it was just, okay, this is what you're going to see, and we're going to continue.
Yep,
Like that's it. Like that, to have
yep,
people there to talk you through it and be like, this is, maybe what we do, and you can do it as well. That's always a good thing to have a good support system there.
yeah. And on a volunteer level, I know people look at volunteers a little different than paid or professional firefighters, but you know what? We had a great group of mentors there at our department. We had at the time. We had three stations. We were the biggest fire department in the county. Three
Mhm.
stations, 9 trucks. I mean, we rolled, and but it was great. The mentorship there. These guys really kind of took you under their wing and helped you grow in the fire service.
It's interesting to think though that you're 16, and you mentioned just a little bit ago that you had to be 18 to go into a burning building. So it's crazy to me to think that being 16 years old and doing all this training and stuff, and then having someone kind of be like, you're doing all this training, but guess what? As soon as you're 18, you can go into that burning building. Like, what? Like,
Yeah,
is this real life? And
yeah.
it is, and that's how it works out.
I couldn't wait. Luckily, we had a bunch of live burns and stuff before we actually
Mhm.
went into a burning building, more controlled burns and stuff that we go into and fight fire. So that was a great training process as well. But yeah, my first fire I went into, just never forget it.
I
Scary. It was
I
scary,
was I
and
was gonna say, yeah, man, I can't even imagine, going through, because you can have in any profession, you can have all the training that you want, but especially in public safety, when the shit hits the fan, like when it's your turn
yep.
to now you're gonna be the one doing this, you're like, oh geez, all right. And it's just like I feel my heart pumping already.
Yeah, am I going to remember what the hell I'm supposed to do when I get in here? Am I going to forget everything? I'm going to black out, just blank and be like, "Oh shit, what am I supposed to do?"
Right.
It's
And I mean, just feeling the heat alone and knowing what you're
yeah,
getting into, especially at that young age. I mean, at any age, it can be scary, right? But when you're younger, you're like, oh my God, like I have my whole life to live, but
yeah,
this is what I signed up for. And also, this is what I've been training for. So it might be more so that scared, nervous, but that anticipation, like, yeah, like you're excited, like you want to get in there. Of course, in the back of your mind, you're like freaking out a little bit, but it's that excitement of wanting to do that. And I can see that And that's pretty crazy,
But
though.
part of the funny side of it was my friends. A lot of them sometimes wouldn't ride with me on the weekends. Like we go hang out or go cruising, they wouldn't ride with me because they know if the tones went off, they were going to have to ride with me to a wreck or to a fire and just sit in the car and do nothing.
Oh.
So half the time they wouldn't ride with me around.
That's funny.
One buddy
yeah.
got stuck sitting in my car for 2.5 hours while I was at a house fire.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is hilarious. And I can just imagine later on, yeah, people are like, no, dude, you don't want to go because this is what happened to me and it's going to happen to you too, potentially.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So you spend all that time doing, all of this. And so do you continue to like move up in, I guess, in rank in the fire department, or are you also EMT, or what all are you doing at this time then as you're continuing
Well,
years through?
at this time I switched on over to more. I got all my firefighter stuff and I got my EMT, and we had a ambulance service here in town that ran emergency and non-emergency calls. So I got on with them and worked for them for 8 or 9 years and loved it. I learned a whole lot. And I did some firefighting after that, but most of the time when we ran calls, wrecks and stuff, I was the medical guy. I was the guy that had a lot of the more training. Most of our firefighters just had firefighting training. They really didn't care much for EMS. So I just kind of dove into the EMS side of it too, and just fell in love with that aspect of it as well. Load and go. People don't do it nowadays, but I believe in load the patient, get them to the hospital as quick as you can. Don't sit on scene and try to play doctor. But that's another story.
That's another box.
Yeah, that's another box. Get that.
Well, I was just going to ask you, like, which did you love doing more? It sounds like EMS ended up growing on you pretty quickly.
Yeah, it did. EMS did grow on me, and I love the firefighting end of it too, because, like I said, I went through all my training for firefighter 1, firefighter 2, hazmat, all that stuff. But the medical side was just also fascinating as well. Just sometimes you look like a miracle worker. You got somebody who's a diabetic, their sugar's 12, they're unresponsive. You give them a little bit of sugar, and they're up walking around, and they think you're just performed a big miracle. Everybody's watching them.
What?
You just brought them back from the dead.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's good. Sometimes you can see your stuff, like with cardiac arrest, doing those chest compressions and getting somebody back. They're getting the heart rate back. There's nothing better than that feeling.
So how is the mental health aspect in that portion of it? Because I feel like each discipline of public safety has its own form of mental health and wellness. You've got the fire department with those you're trying to save, or you and your partners are in there, and just the thought of being in there, you've got these flames, and anyone could potentially pass away because of just how crazy a fire can be, right? And then you look at EMS, and now you're rushing out there to get to people, and if you're unable to load and go and you're actually working on someone there, it's you're now with that person hands on. And of course, like, police has their own, and then of course dispatch, which we'll get to as well. What is that like being in EMS? And I don't know, you're just working with someone, hoping that they make it. And some of that stuff I can't imagine, because you're face to face and you're working on them, and it's all you.
Yeah, some of the worst ones, I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, every one of them we took the best care of, but some of the toughest ones were like children, or those were the worst. If they were sick or traumatic injuries, anything like that, that was just the worst. That one kind of played with you at night, especially if they were. I remember we had these girls in an accident. They were pinned in, and if I think about it hard enough, and this was been 30 some odd years ago, I can still hear them screaming in the car, screaming for help. I mean, they were okay. They had fractured femurs. We got them out and got them treated, and they went on to live happy lives. But still, you can still hear those things in your head, those screams and those various things, which rolls back over to dispatch, the same sort of thing. But a friend of mine once told me, well, my partner, he told me one time, he says, look at it this way. He goes, we're going to take the best care of them we can. But at the end of the day, this isn't your family. And I know that sounds cold. I mean, it really does sound cold, but you need a little bit of a barrier there
Right.
to kind of separate your emotions from what you need to do. And that can be difficult to do at times. And I stuck with that. I'm like, okay, this is not my family, but I'm going to take the best care of them I can. And like I said, it sounds cold and harsh, but sometimes you have to do those sort of things to get through. You have to think that way.
Yeah, no, for sure. I can see what your friend is saying there, because you're working on them, and if you get too involved, right, it could hinder the process of whatever it is that you're doing at that time, because, man, it's happened to everyone in any profession, in whatever they're doing. People get into their heads, and that's when they start messing up. It's just like, if you, for anyone, no matter what it is that you're doing, if you go in there with the confidence of, let's just say, like a 5-year-old, dressing themselves, and they think they look amazing, you're going to do
Yeah.
awesome, right? But if you go in there like, I don't know how this is going to go, I don't know how, just like really getting in there. And I say that too because I get nervous whenever I speak, and it happens all the time. But as soon as I start speaking, it goes away, and the confidence is there and everything. I think that kind of keeps me humble. But going back to the other piece of it, if that confidence is just waning and you start getting into your head, that's when people start messing up.
Yeah, well, especially when you get emotionally involved in it, you start thinking about all the other aspects of what's going on with this family and the various things with the child. You just need to focus on what you need to do, or the patient, just focus on it, do what you got to do. And then when it's over with and you've turned them over to the hospital, if you need to go cry or do whatever, go do it then. But you just can't really get emotionally involved while you're taking care of somebody. And that's hard to do sometimes.
It is hard to do, especially when you're on the phone with someone. And for those who are watching and listening, we're not saying that you cannot do this. We're just saying that there are some situations, in some scenarios, where you need to wait until after. However, there are also some situations and some scenarios where you're just being there for the person. And if they're unloading, sometimes it's okay to go ahead and, be a little emotional with them, because at that point, there's probably nothing else that can be done but be there for that person. So those are the differences we're trying to convey here for everyone who's watching and listening. There's a purpose,
especially if it's
for every moment.
Especially if it's a person that's in a mental health crisis type deal. They're going through some sort of struggle mentally, suicidal, whatever. It's best to kind of show a little empathy and get in there with them on that and talk to them until they get somebody there with them. That's the best bet with that,
Yes, and I've got a lot of friends in public safety, and just think, this is kind of off the wall, but just kind of thinking about some of the stuff with the fire department and their EMS and what happens when they go out there. You sometimes people would say to me, is it like in the movies? Like, what do you mean? Like, well, like there's a Final Destination movie where, someone is in the car and the fire department is there, and they end up hitting something on accident and it makes their head go back. And I'm like, I have no idea. I'm like, that's a movie, man. Like, it's not the same as in the movies. I don't know that could happen. I mean, they in that scene specifically, they end up hitting, they've got the jaws of life, and they put it into the side, and it makes the airbag deploy. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's just a movie.
Yeah, it's just a movie, man.
Yeah.
Movies and TV shows, while we're on this real quick, they give people that are out there just such a false sense of what we do, right, especially in 911, because somebody will call, they think they can call and hang up, and we're just going to send somebody to their house automatically. I didn't necessarily get your address or phone number when you called and hung up. And then when I try to call you back, you don't answer. Then you call back 20 minutes later. I called y'all. Why didn't y'all send somebody? Well, hell, you didn't stay on the line long enough for me to find out where you're at.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. For those who are watching and listening, if that happens and you're calling from a cell phone and we don't have a way to locate you, it's yeah, it's not going to happen. Someone's not just going to go out there. I mean, of course, there's other technology and stuff, but it's not
Yeah.
always 100%. So
These
if you
TV
have,
shows, they can track you down from 100 miles away, get you. I mean, it's like
right, see you from the satellite, like,
yeah,
yeah, no, it doesn't happen that way. And if you have a landline, I mean, we could send somebody over there. Like if we hear something and no one's answering, we can send someone to
yeah,
do at least a welfare check. But also,
yeah.
how many people have landlines now? Not a lot of people.
Nobody,
Not a lot of people.
nobody. No.
So yeah, no, it does not always work that way. And it's funny. Before we move on, I'll add a little piece to this as well. Yesterday, I was at the gas station, and it's cold as hell over here, like as hell, just like crazy cold. I think it's below zero. I had a beanie on with the IM 911 patch on there, and I walk up to pay for the stuff that I had, and the girl that was standing there, she goes, "Are you 911?" And I said, actually, I said I was a 911 dispatcher and supervisor for 13 years, and I've been in public safety for a total of about 24. And she's like, oh, she goes, well, good, that's awesome. And that we were talking about it, and she goes, that's got to be pretty crazy. It's pretty stressful. And I was like, yeah, there are a lot of stressful moments and everything. And she goes, but it's not like that Halle Berry movie, right? Have you seen that movie, The Call? And
Yeah, no.
I said, no, ma'am, it is not like that at all. I said, I'm sure a lot of us want to reach through the phone to like give someone a hug when they're going through some crazy stuff. I said, but we can't just leave and beat the shit out of someone. And her and her partner there were just laughing their asses off.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's hilarious.
yeah, it was pretty funny, but also they had that thought of it can't be like that. And I'm like, no, it is not like that at all. They're like, oh, we're pretty sure, but we just wanted to ask. And I was like, well, good. That's the key, is asking questions and not assuming
Yeah,
that it is just like what it is on TV.
it's not glamorous as Halle Berry. Halle Berry makes it.
I know, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep, exactly. Um so throughout your time in fire and EMS and everything, because as we mentioned, you've got 40 years in public safety. Um, did you get a chance to ever go into dispatch and do sit-alongs or anything, or was it just from listening over the radio? What was some of that experience before actually going into dispatch?
It was pretty much listening over the radio. And before I went into dispatch, I left EMS and went into corrections.
Hmm.
So I worked in a prison for 20 some odd years for the state of North Carolina, and I was on the hostage negotiations team for 13 of those years, and that really helped out a lot when it came to training. I never got to actually sit in the seat, but when I actually came to 911 4 years ago, and I started getting my training, I was like, holy smokes, this is my hostage negotiations training all over again. So it really, I was surprised at how the two just meshed together really well. And that has helped a lot. But pretty much it was just me listening to the scanner. I don't know if you're old enough to remember this, but the old scanners we had, you had to go buy the crystals at Radio Shack and put in your scanner to get the frequencies. So
I had a
I had one of
CB
those old
radio.
bad boys.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah, we literally had to go to Radio Shack and get the crystals to put in our radio to have that frequency.
oh my lord. I don't remember the crystal piece, but I remember a lot of the scanners and stuff that they had in Radio Shack. And I
Yeah.
used to get in trouble going back there because they used to have it like in the back corners, and I never saw kids going over there or anything. And I mean, I'm like a teenager at the time, but I would go over there and I would mess with all of the stuff, and they'd be like, "Hey, get away from there." I'm like, continue messing with stuff and then run.
Yeah.
Oh, dang. So okay, so um you had all of that and you were preparing for it already, basically. It's interesting sometimes though when you start going into training for dispatch and you realize how some stuff in your life, your experience, your past experience or whichever helps prepare you for
Hmm.
a lot of what you're going to be doing. And what I mean by that as well is, so before dispatch, I had managed a couple different retail stores. People used to come in and they would get pissed off at me, being the manager, and say, "Well, I didn't get the discount." I'm like, "Well, if you look at the receipt, your item was already discounted. You can't get a discount on a discount." And it
Yeah.
was just negotiating, but trying to be cool by the end of it. And then when I started my training for dispatch and stuff, I thought, man, I was training for this already.
Yeah. It's really weird how it all kind of comes full circle.
Hmm.
People think it's just, you just come in, learn to dispatch, you answer a few calls and dispatch out the fire department. But really, there's a whole lot of life skills we learn going through life that just adapt to 911.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And so what brought you, I guess, from EMS to corrections, but then corrections into dispatch? Was it just kind of, I don't know, I guess exploring new opportunities?
Burnout. I
That
was
makes
so
sense
burned
as
out
well.
within the prison system.
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh, I was burnt, and it was bad. And I said, I mean, I even took a pay cut to come to dispatch,
Mhm.
and at the time, and I was like, I got to do something. So I put in, saw I had an opening. I said, you know what? Let me put in for this. I've done everything on this side of the radio. Let me see what I can do on the other side. So I went in, and I've fallen in love with it. I really have. It's a great experience to know you can help people, and some people are just jerks that you talk to. You're going to get that, but the ones that you really get to help at the end of the day, and you've helped them, there's nothing more satisfying than that. Knowing when you hear the fireman walk into where a lady's having difficulty breathing, and you hear the fireman walk in and say, "Hey, miss, we're here," and you can disconnect that line. It's just not a greater feeling than that.
So you've been in dispatch for 4 years now. If you can think back to the beginning of those 4 years, because as you said, you didn't have a sit along or anything like that. So do you remember what was going through your mind when you first walked into dispatch and you see everything that's there, whether it be monitors, multiple people working at the same time, watching them just like move like a well-oiled machine? Like, was it what you thought it was going to be, or was there anything that was eye-opening, or did you feel overwhelmed at all kind of watching it go
I
down
got,
as well?
it was a little overwhelming when you sit down in front of those screens and you see, because we do police, fire, and EMS. So when you see all those units on this board that you got to keep control of, and you hear the phones constantly ringing and radio traffic coming in, you kind of say, "Man, am I going to be able to do this?" Listening to the scanner is one thing. You can answer, "Oh, they say, oh, they said this," but when you're actually behind the hot seat and have people coming at you from every direction, it's a struggle, and that's where we have to. Luckily, I had a good trainer, and he just kind of took it slow and said, "Hey, let's just do this one step at a time." And I think that's a big factor in keeping people when they come in. Your new hires, just make them feel comfortable because they're already anxious from the get go.
Mhm.
Um, Me, I've had history with using radios and stuff like that. A lot of these people that come in have never touched a radio before, never talked on a radio, have never done anything like that. So it's really overwhelming. And like I said, I was fortunate enough to have a trainer to kind of just, ease me through the process. And I think that's the way it needs to be. And as a CTO myself, that's the way I want to treat the new hires also. I just want to ease them through the process and make them feel comfortable and just ease that anxiety that's on them.
I fully agree with that because, just kind of thinking about, my own experience when I had first come into a central dispatch, it kind of felt a little lonely. Like you said, you're already anxious as it is, and just kind of asking that question, just like you said, am I going to be able to do this? Are they going to have the patience that I need? Like when I went into the central dispatch, I already had about 4 years of experience, but I was doing that. It was just me. It was just one person on for every 8-hour shift. Now I'm going to a shift where there's 3 to 4 people on at the same time. They're 12-hour days, and I'm trying to learn how to work in a team, completely different dynamic. And at that time, there wasn't a lot of talking, man. Like there wasn't a lot of, hey, how's it going? Welcome to the thin gold line, or welcome here.
Yeah.
Like it was to the point where I almost quit because it didn't feel welcoming. It wasn't like the interview when they had said to me, we're a family here. We do this,
Yeah.
and there's this togetherness. We've got the support. And then you walk in, it's like, where's the support? Like I need to find it. Like it was weird in the beginning, but because I feel as though we're masters of communication, right? But when it comes to communicating with each other, it's not always
We
there.
suck.
And I don't know why it's that way. If we're just we talk to so many people that when it comes to talking with each other, it's like I don't have enough in my cup to be able to continue. I don't know what it is, but I get what you're saying. It's always good to have that that support right off the bat because we want people to stay. And
Yeah.
so I'm glad you had
You,
that.
yeah. You were talking about feeling like family. There was one person when I started my shift, started on night shift. My first night in, I get there, I'm walking up to the door. I'm all excited to start my new shift. I see a coworker coming. I open up the door. I introduce myself. I say, "Hey, I'm Steve. I'm the new dispatcher. How you doing?" She walked right by me, walked through the other door, didn't say a word. And I'm like, "Dude, do I stink? What's going on with me?" She
Yeah.
didn't speak for like a month. She didn't talk to me for like a month. And I was like, "Holy crap!" The other people on the shift did, but that one person, I was like, and I never want to be that person. I always take it upon myself. We have new hires to talk to them, ask them how they're doing. How's your training going? Just reach out, make them feel like they're part, because they are from day one. They are part of the team. A rookie
Right.
quarterback, a rookie gets signed by the Cowboys. He's a Cowboy. He's on the team. And just like a dispatcher, they're on the team. They may not be seasoned. They may not know it all, but they are a team member, and they're just as important as the person that's been there 30 years.
Right. And for all you know, they might have some good ass ideas, but you got to listen.
Exactly.
You have to listen to understand, not respond.
Yeah.
It's crazy when you're first starting out, and that's what I love about conversations like this, because we can go back and think about how it was, and also with like certain people, because there are some centers out there. A friend of mine teaches this class that's called oh man, I can't remember what it's called now. Basically what it is where people don't want to learn your name until you get through it.
Yeah.
Like they don't want to know anything about you, because why are they going to waste their time? And it's like, dude, like we're so short staff as it is. Why are you going to be
Yeah.
like that? And it ends up coming down to, is it jealousy? Do people feel threatened for their job or anything? Which I don't think so, because of short staffing, you shouldn't feel threatened. But, or is it because hurt people hurt people?
Well, yeah, that's a good one too. And a lot of times I see people, excuse me, I see people all the time that don't want to train people, that don't want to see them grow because they're worried they may take my spot or they may know more than I do. Who gives a crap if they know more than I do? So what? I'm not going to know it all. You're not going to know it
Right.
all. Like you said a minute ago, they may have something different, see a different perspective of something that can change. It can be much better for all of us. So we just have to get out of our egos and just start working with each other as a team. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves, that people don't do that.
Yeah, and it sucks in a lot of places, but there are also a ton of places where they're doing it the right way. And
Yes.
excuse me, they do have people that are staying. There are actually a few centers out there that are not short staffed, which is awesome. And those are the ones that really need to be studied, because they're just their culture, the way they have built it. Now it didn't happen overnight. And a lot of these places, they'll say that like it was hell. Like we worked through so much, and we're where we are at because of us working as a team and because of what we've built. And it's those are the good places. Those are the ones
Yeah.
that people really want to go to, and they probably have a waiting list as well.
Yeah. I actually do a class on this subject called 90 Days In. It's
Mhm.
about the first 90 days of a new hire and what we can do to make them stay. And it's little things like when they first get hired, get the shift to sign a card and mail them a card saying welcome. Do a welcome month. I mean, just a bunch of little things you can do that just makes the person feel. Have a gift basket there when they show up to work, just saying a little bag with hand sanitizer, pens, notepads, just little things to say welcome. It's important. They need to feel part.
I dig that. Yeah, no, that is very cool. There is a dispatch center. I almost said company. There's a dispatch center out of out of Georgia, and I saw them post this. It was either last week or the week before, but either way, they ended up posting. It was a couple of their more seasoned dispatchers with a new hire, and I guess they were going on a hike. And they got a hold of the new hire and were like, "Come with us." And they took some pictures. They posted that because that's kind of how they're welcoming some of their newer folks. Is just like, hey, we're going to go hang out and do this. Come and hang out with us, and they're learning from each other. And if they want to talk shop while they're there, they can. But it looked like they were just enjoying the hike, and that
Dude, I like
alone,
that.
that's very welcoming for someone who's new and is already scared out of their mind probably on what they're going to be
Yeah.
doing, and but learning like that, almost like a buddy program in a sense, like that is pretty cool.
Like with the introverted folks, a lot of those people, they're not necessarily comfortable talking to people or being around a lot of people. So you just kind of have to work that in. Going on a hike may not necessarily work for them. You may have to do something a little more subtle or
Right. Yeah.
whatever to bring them in. But you kind of have to get to know the person a little bit too that you've hired.
Yeah, there are so many different aspects of it, and I want to go back really quick then to with the person that just like walked by you. How did that? I mean, we you mentioned how it felt, but I mean, did it set kind of a? I don't know. Is that how the stage got set for you going in? Like, oh crap! Like,
It
did
kind
I
of
make?
did
Did
because
I make a mistake?
that was my first interaction of my new shift with my. I mean, I knew some of the other people on the shift, but I hadn't met this person yet. And that was my first interaction coming in. And here I am excited, introducing myself, and they just turned their nose up and walked away. And this person, I hate to say it, they're no longer with the department, but
Mhm.
they were just miserable in their own life, period. Once I got
Mm.
to know them, it had to do with them. It had nothing to do with me. And
Yeah.
I just kind of realized that pretty quick and moved on. So
It's good that you realize that and notice that and everything too, because it's just like someone calling in to 911 for the very first time and the person answers and they sound kind of shitty. That might be the last time that person ever calls because of that one moment. And for you as well, going through that, that could have, now it didn't obviously, but it could
yeah,
have kind of set your in your mind like, okay, I'm going to put up a wall as well. And that would have
yeah.
sucked, but obviously that didn't happen with you, and that's good. So you end up going through that. How long did the training last, and do you remember some of those earlier calls that you were taking in the beginning?
Yeah, training lasts for several months. I mean, it went on
Mhm.
because we're not just, I know some centers are just call takers and some people are just dispatchers. At our center, we do both. We rotate. So today I may answer phones. Tomorrow I may be dispatching police, dispatching fire EMS, backup phones and VCN. So we kind of rotate on a daily basis on what we do. So you've kind of got to learn the whole aspect of it,
Mhm.
uh, which was pretty good. Now, one of the first calls, it wasn't the first call, but the first time I had a CPR call was a little stressful because I'm used to being hands-on doing CPR, and giving those verbal instructions is a whole new ball game, totally different ball game. Trying to get the person to get them off the bed, get them on a flat surface. They don't want to, just trying to find a way around that to get the person to do what you need them to do it's been difficult. And at times it still is difficult.
I can just imagine that transition because you spent multiple years hands on, and now you are doing this over the phone where instead of seeing everything, now you're just picturing it putting together these pieces to a puzzle, wanting to get into the phone, right, to do what you got to
Yeah.
do, and almost like, slap your hand and be like, no, like this is completely different now. And dude, and so 4 years in dispatch, did you start kind of like as COVID was dying down a little bit?
Yes. Yes, it was starting to die down. We still had to wear masks and stuff, but it was still dying. It was dying down, but we had
Oof.
to wear masks and switch back and forth. Luckily, we didn't have, as long as we were at our console, we didn't have to wear a mask. Once we got up and walked away, we had to put one on. So it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't the best either.
Well, so because you do all disciplines of public safety, which one would you say, and what I mean by that also is over the phone in dispatch, because you're doing all of it, what is your more favorite part of the dispatch portion? Is it the phone calls? Is it being on the radios? Or which part would you say is more your favorite?
Um, when I first started out, doing fire dispatch was my favorite because, like I said, I've got a history with fire dispatch. I know all the lingo. I know when they say they're doing stuff on the scene, I know exactly what they're doing and how they're doing it. I guess because I felt more comfortable with that. Police took a little getting used to, but we switch up so often. I kind of like it all. I don't like doing the VSAN entries. That's one I don't really like doing too much, but because I hate all the little detailed stuff. But yeah, we rotate so much that you kind of get the best of all of it. You don't get burnt out on one particular thing every week. Or I think if I was on phones all the time, I would get so burnt out.
Oh, for sure, man. And so when you say that you guys switch out, is it in a 12-hour shift that you switch halfway through, or is that just every day you're doing something different? Because that's the way it was when I was in central dispatch as well. It was 12-hour shifts. There was a stint where we were trying to change. So like, let's just say, for example, I was on main phones for the first half, and then the second half I was either running NCIC or I was on law enforcement radio. But sometimes it would get so busy that we wouldn't get a chance to switch. So just went back to the way we're doing it before. We're like, screw this. It's too much of a pain in the ass, especially when you have someone who has set up like all of their food and whatever they're going to be
Yeah.
reading, or, however, that's their console for the day. So we were just like, we're just going to stick to what we're doing. Phones for 12 hours, and then the next shift, the next day, radios for 12 hours. So
Yeah,
what is it
that's
like
what
for
we
you?
do.
Oh, you do it like
Well,
that
that's what we
too.
do.
Okay.
Yeah, we do the exact same thing. Just do it 12 hours, rotate, and it works out well. It really does. I mean, just breaks up the monotony sometimes.
Yeah.
But then again, when things get busy, we're doing it all. I might be on phones, but everybody might be on a phone. The phone's ringing for shots fired or whatever. So I may be answering police, fire, answering phones, doing whatever. We just all back each other up too at the same time. So you got to be a good multitasker.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And that's what I was going to ask next for those who are watching and listening that are from the general public. If you could explain that the whole aspect of multitasking, but also at the same time, listening to everything that is going on, because you could be on the phone and listening to everything within that environment, but the other ear is listening to what's in the environment where you're sitting. What is that like?
Oh, it's crazy. It's just that situational awareness in your room where you're at. Because like you said, I'll be listening to the caller, but then I'll hear the speaker come across with a police officer asking for some information that I need to get from the caller, or EMS is needing a stage, or somebody over here is hollering, hey, it's clear for the EMS to go in. It's just constant. And you just kind of have to break it down, take it in pieces. And it takes a long time. Like, luckily I could do that. But some people, it takes a long time when they come in just to hear all the different things coming in, and what you need now, what you don't need, just how to quickly take it in and toss it, or take it in and keep it. And sometimes you can get insane. And there's times when you actually do miss stuff, but luckily, if you have a good team, somebody else catches that and has your back too. So
it's all about the aspect of triage.
yeah.
especially if you are working in a center like my last center where there's a 3 people minimum, which would mean if I'm on main phones, I am taking every single phone call that is coming in. And I could have 3 or 4 calls going at a time. And depending on what each one of those calls are, you have to triage those by the highest priority to the lowest priority. And I remember telling someone once, you remember taking a call where it was a personal injury accident. We've got everybody heading out there. People are still calling for that accident. During that time, a domestic uh, call comes in. It's a verbal domestic only, and you're trying to keep them separated. And then a third call comes in. It's a medical, and you're doing CPR. But as you're doing textbook CPR and EMS is headed that way, they've got so many compressions that they have to go through. You have like a moment to put them on hold to check what's going on with that domestic. And now there's a weapon involved. And I would ask people, which one
Yeah.
do you stay with? And a lot of times people would say, well, you stick with the CPR one or you go back to the CPR one. I'm like, no, because they're already doing the compressions. EMS is already like almost there. They're going to be done with their thing. This other one, this domestic where officers are going to, it now has a weapon. And this is the one that's in progress. And you have to protect the officers that are going there. And they're like, oh my God, like, I don't know that I could do this. It's a crazy
Well, think
thing.
about it. You've actively got this. Yeah, you've actively got this person over here doing CPR, so they're actually doing what you need them to do. And
Right.
over here is just a situation that's still unfolding. I mean, it's gone from a verbal to a weapon. Who knows what's next? So,
Yeah. And it's just it's a crazy profession, but I wouldn't give it up for anything because it's
no.
public safety gets into your blood so fast. Sometimes it's hard to explain. And so for you in your years that you've had in dispatch as well, is in only if you feel comfortable sharing, but is there kind of a call that sticks with you?
There is. This isn't. Uh, I was on the back end of this call
Mhm.
with my supervisor. She was taking the call, but I could hear it from across the room. Uh, this lady woke up one morning. It was probably 6 o'clock in the morning, and her daughter, 14 years old, was dead. I mean, she was gone. I mean, she had overdosed, and just hearing her describe. You could literally hear her across the room hollering through my partner's headset, and that just kind of stuck with me all day that day. It just kind of stuck with me that this lady woke up to her 14-year-old daughter gone, and those screams and cries really, as a parent, that really bothered me, and not really bothered, but just kind of broke my heart. I guess I
Yeah.
should say it hurt. And in another aspect with that, with public safety and hearing these calls, I found I raise my kids differently too. Like they say, I want to go here, I want to go do this. No, you're not going over there because I know what goes on there. Or I see what happens here. Sometimes you know a little too much and you become a little overprotective of your children, and they don't
Right.
quite understand that. And that's a tough situation also.
Yeah. And I was actually you get out of my head, man, because I was just gonna ask you, how do you feel that the profession has changed you?
Oh
And that
yeah, it's
sounds
kind
like
of
some of it right there.
that, and I mean, it kind of makes you cold hearted at times. You put up so many walls blocking out trauma and blocking out these things you see. If you don't take time to deal with it, you just kind of come cold to whatever. It's like, oh my God, you see that person get hit by a car? Oh, they're up walking, they're good. You know,
Right. Yeah.
for everybody else, it's like traumatic. Somebody will pass out in church, and you're like, everybody's running to them, flip, like they're fine. They just got hot and passed out. They're going to be okay.
Yeah.
You care and but it just, I don't know. Your emotions just kind of go away a little bit. You kind of have to reel that in and reset yourself to get your emotions back sometimes.
Yeah. There have been a few friends of mine that I've spoken to who were kind of just reliving when they retired out of dispatch. And one of the things that has been common with several folks that I've spoken to has been this: I had to learn how to feel again. And I thought, holy shit, like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess I didn't realize that I was kind of going through the same thing when I first left dispatch. Maybe it's because I continued to stay on the private side of 911 and doing the podcast and then the I'm 911 movement and like all these stories and everything else I've been putting out there for over a decade now. But it made a lot of sense for people to say this is something that I've kind of been struggling with is I have to learn how to feel again.
Yeah, it is. And, I'm fixing to do a class in a few weeks on dark humor and
Hmm.
how that impacts us, And I've heard somebody say that, we use dark humor a lot just to cover things up. I'm bad about it. But my dark humor is more of a dark humor dad joke, which nobody gets. So that's horrible. But the thing is, you look at people, especially like people who have committed suicide that are in the public safety industry. And so you've heard people say, well, that guy, he had a lot of dark humor. He spoke, he said a lot of jokes. And then when you go back and look at it, it's like, man, he was crying for help when he was doing
Right.
that. So there's a fine line there. And I think our feelings, we do it. We're the world's best at covering up our feelings and holding them in and putting up those walls and just kind of keeping everything out.
Right. Yeah. No, and I think also kind of on the flip side of that as well is sometimes the people who put up more of a tough exterior are people who actually need to talk more. Like I've had people actually come up to me and tell me that what I'm doing is pointless with Imagine Listening and or the I Am 91 movement and sharing stories. I'm like, why do you say that it's pointless? And they're like, well, we knew what we were getting into and this and that. Like I understand what you're trying to do and that's cool, but we need to just kind of, keep it inside. I'm like, no, I did that for a lot of years. Like I buried my shit and it was more therapeutic to talk about it. And I said, in my experience, those who have said stuff like this to me and have acted a certain way, that tough exterior, that is, those are the folks that need to talk more. And I remember this
Oh yeah.
specific person ended up sharing like several stories with me. And we were just standing there. It was just one on one and that person had been in my Imagine Listening class prior, and the person goes, "See, like I don't really have much to talk about." And I said, "You realize what we did just now?" And he just kind of looked at me and he goes, "You know, keep doing what you're doing." And I said, I hope you're all right." And the person goes, "Actually, you know what? I am all right." And then they walked off. And I thought maybe that person just needed to speak to someone one on one instead of in a group.
Yeah.
Just have someone listen. And but yeah, that's kind of been my experience that a lot of times those are the folks that need to talk more. They don't know how. And there's that fear,
Yeah. Well, they're scared that they're going to be labeled as weak or labeled as,
Right.
oh, well, you can't do your job or we're going to fire you because you're scared or whatever. Not scared, but you're hurt, you're upset. That's not true. I mean, there's plenty of places out there that'll help you and move you along and help you get through this process. Plenty of people that'll help you that are out
Hmm.
there. So many resources that we have in this industry and just so many people that just care, that just are willing to listen. Like you said, just take 5 minutes and listen to what they have to say.
Right. Especially now. Not when I first started in 2001. There definitely was nothing around, but
Yeah.
I would say from like 2016 up until now, there have definitely been big shifts, big changes. We're talking about things. People are getting it out. And it's just amazing the resources. And again, why conversations like we're having right now are so important. And so we've been talking here. It doesn't even feel like it's been as long as we've been talking here. I could talk to you all day,
No.
dude. But
Yeah,
um
man.
I want to hear as we're going kind of into the wrap up of this some of the classes that you teach and where people can find you to learn more about what you're doing and, sharing your experience, sharing your classes, all of that. Fire away, man.
Yeah, man. Best place to find me is on LinkedIn. I use that more than about anything. Some of the classes that I teach, like I said earlier, I do a class on 90 days in, the first 90 days of a new hire's journey. I do one on the attitudes in the workplace called Ripple Effect. I'm getting ready to do one on change, how to adapt to change. Fixing to do one on non-positional leadership, doing one on dark humor. I just constantly have these ideas coming up in classes. I don't want the same old classes that everybody does with mental health or whatever. They're great, but there's a bunch of those. I kind of want to reach out and do other things. Like the dark humor one is my friend Mary. Me and her talked about it. We're like, oh yeah, let's do this because it's a big issue. I mean, it's a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. We just have to learn how to regulate that. So I've got that coming up that's coming up at the Triple T conference in Abington, Virginia in March, which is a wonderful second year they're doing it. Great. Toby Akers puts on a great conference there.
That's awesome.
Then I'll be at some conferences in Virginia, some in Oklahoma this summer. Hopefully I'll be speaking at the APCO conference in Baltimore. So just look out for me. If you want me to come speak on something at your facility, just reach out. I'm here.
Awesome, man. That is very, very cool. I love everything that you're doing. And it has just been, it's been an honor and a pleasure to have you on and to talk with you. And I'm looking forward to meeting you in person at some of these conferences and continue to learn more, man. So I've got one last question for you as we go into the wrap up of this. So you've got 40 years in public safety. You got 4 of those in 911. You can choose either the beginning, the very, very beginning, or the beginning of your dispatch career. But if you could go back in time to talk to yourself, and that's not to change anything, because I feel as though, there's a lot of hard lessons sometimes that we learn, things that we've experienced to bring us to the person who we are today. So it's not to change anything. And this is a question that I've been asking people for years, because I love to see what the answers are going to be, and they're always different. But if you could go back in time to talk to yourself at the beginning of your career, what would you say to yourself?
I would say to myself, give myself some grace. There's times when I never gave myself enough grace. I just worried about, am I doing this right? Am I doing it? Instead of just focusing on what I needed to do and being the best I could be, which I did, sometimes I just beat my own self up and didn't give myself grace. And I think that's a lot of us need that. We need to say it's okay to give yourself grace and to give yourself, just a little pat on the back and say, you're okay. It's going to be fine. Just keep doing what you're doing and live that way. Just do your best, but give yourself grace in the process.
Perfect. Awesome, man. Thank you so very much for what you do in this profession and for coming on and sharing your story. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
All right, man. I will be right back here with you in just one moment. And for those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you ever want to be a guest on the show, you can email us. And that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on social media. You can support us. The easiest way to do this is to simply go to links.co/WTT podcast. And that's links with 2 i's.co/WTT podcast. You'll find everything there: email, social media, where to hear the latest episode, where to buy Imagine Listening Volume 1 and Volume 2, where to find 250 hours worth of free continuing education for dispatch, and also dispatch and podcast merchandise. Again, it can be found at links with 2 i's.co/WTT podcast. This episode has been sponsored by InDigital, a leader in next-gen core services, and a shout out to subscribers as always. And this can be seen on Facebook, YouTube, as well as LinkedIn Live and X. And you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we will see you all in the next one. Imagine listening to someone's worst day every single day. Imagine listening as someone experiences life, through their worst nightmare to the miracle of birth or a life saved. I'm Ricardo Martinez, a former 911 dispatcher, and for years, I've been recording the voices of a hidden world, ours. I've provided a space for 911 dispatchers to share their powerful stories. It started as a peer support session and continues. Dispatchers sitting together, sharing out loud, or writing down what they couldn't say. Some stories will grip you. Stories of heartbreak, resilience, and calls that haunt us long after the line goes quiet. But imagine listening is more than heavy emotion. It's about healing. It's about laughing through the chaos, lifting each other up, and reminding the world that dispatchers are human too. The lighthearted will balance the heavy. Experience the power of storytelling, a podcast for the thin gold line and those who want to understand it. This is Imagine Listening. Your worst day is our everyday. Subscribe now wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.